Greetings, my excellent friend. Welcome to the Heavy Metal History Report.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Heavy Metal History Podcast, my guest today is Paul Ryan, the mastermind behind the band Origin. Paul, thank you for doing this, man.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say, but I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So kind of the thing, I know we don't have a ton of time, but, you know, the thing I kind of like to start with to get the conversation rolling here. What were some of your influences when you first started getting into heavy metal? Like, what were those bands and records that you remember first hearing that kind of changed everything for you?
Oh, well, I mean, there's various eras of older, but, you know, back when I was a wee little feller, I remember being in my mom's Nova, you know, listening to Heart here in Barracuda or something, and, you know, it was just super heavy and rocking out. And then later, I mean, back then, you know, it was like, I think for like, you know, I dressed up as like Gene Simmons one time for Halloween. Kiss was like, and very important to me. It was terrifying. I mean, the music's kind of cheesy, but there wasn't anything really scary back then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the imagery was shocking, and I wanted to be like that. I mean, even though I'm not one of the bands that wears makeup or anything like that. It's just like, back then there was nothing else like it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's something that's definitely lost on this generation, is they don't understand like how notorious Kiss was back then.
I mean, like, you know, they have the hits and they have some really bad songs, but, you know, they were in the marketing. I don't think they kind of built the blueprint of how to make it as a band as far as merchandising. I mean, and also the imagery and everything. But, you know, so I definitely say I was drawn to the dark side of things, you know, musically. My mom was, you know, sang and played drums and played piano, and so I was always around music. But, you know, I was always into like Black Sabbath and Ozzy, and then, you know, like Motley Crue and all in Dokken, and then it just kept continuously getting heavier, like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, and then like they used to have this show. It was like, you know, like after school or something in the daytime. It was kind of like Headbangers Ball, but it was like Metal Shop. It's on MTV, I want to say.
Interesting.
It might even transform into Headbangers Ball, but I mean, they had like guest DJs back then.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like I'll say it word for word here. It was like Steve Snyder was the host, and he was like, "Celtic Frost coming to the States first time ever. Check these guys out." And we were like, saw them, and they had the makeup and their headbang and the music, and the music was terrifying. We were like, oh my God. We were like, holy moly. Like, so we like rode our bicycles, like, I mean, we dumped some change together in a bag and rode our bicycles. I want to say I figured out it was like 2.5 miles to this place called Music Land, where they sold tapes. And me and my buddy dumped our change on the counter to buy the tape, you know, Morbid Tales. And we're like, do we have enough? I'm like, leave more. I'm like, scrounging for pockets, throwing change on the counter to get Celtic Frost Morbid Tales. And like, oh my God, we got it. You know, and we ride our bikes back 2.5 miles, and we push play, and we're like, oh, we're gonna really burn for this. You know, I mean, it was terrifying. You know, it was like, oh man, this stuff is for real. You know what I mean? And back then they had all the, you know, like people made you, the adults made you believe that you were gonna burn in hell for listening to this stuff. And
yeah,
I mean, so, you know, I probably just heard Slayer like maybe the same week as that. You know, I probably got the Slayer. You know, we were really young buying these Slayer and possessed tapes and Creator. Voivod and you know, Cryptic Slaughter and stuff like that. We were, you know, pretty early on in the era, and it just kept getting heavier and heavier. And then, you know, I heard like Napalm Death and Carcass and Deicide, Obituary, you know, Suffocation, stuff like that, Voltor. And I just continued to grasp onto it just was like, wow, you know, back then there were so many different forms of, a lot of the bands didn't sound all the same. They all had their kind of uniqueness, which I feel like we go through that cycle anyway in music with bands. Like there'll be a certain point and then it becomes stagnant and oversaturated, and then it kind of dies off a little bit, and the strong survive and new hybrids arise. It's kind of like life. It all goes in cycles, you know what I mean? So, but that would be my introduction to what, you know, like got me into like playing guitar and stuff. And, you know, like I was just got a guitar about the same era when that stuff was coming around. So I was like young, and I started on drums. My mom's a drummer again. And I actually played viola, hilariously enough.
Hey, that's pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie.
Well, the whole thing was I probably would have stuck with drums, but band started in 5th grade and orchestra started in 4th grade. And the teacher, she knew exactly what she was doing. She played Star Wars, so every little kid was like, oh man, I want to play Star Wars. But, you know, by 7th grade, you know, I was wearing a Dio shirt, carrying the viola to school, like, this is stupid.
You got tricked.
You know, yeah, so I mean, it did help me, you know, like kind of create an ear for it, you know, like picking is in the similar idea of a bow, you know, like how it moves back and forth. And it taught me how to figure out notes, and never that I transpose music, nor do I write music. You know, that was the part that was horrible for me, that part of aspect of music. Mm-hmm. But, you know, so like I would say all the, you know, the rhythm, you know, the darker aspects of the metal playing with, you know, like I'm ripping come from those bands. And then because of my I'll just say minor classical background, you know, like I heard Yngwie, that kind of shaped a lot of the things I did, like which influenced my playing style. So as far as like lead, I don't even consider it lead, but I use more like arpeggios and a riff. I usually call them riff harps. So that was one of the things that kind of influenced that style of my guitar playing. So that's kind of my musical background in a general whole. The drums, I learned it made me like very staccato-ish in my playing. And the viola, you know, kind of gave me my classical and maybe a sense of even the down tuning of an instrument, because back then there wasn't 7 strings or 8 strings or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was, you know, like I went into a music store and I was like, I want to play like this, and they just like kind of laughed, like, what kind of noise is that shit? You know what I mean? But, so basically, I did, you know, just kind of, I had to pour out the tuning machine and the guitar and everything, and you know, I just have at it, and that's kind of where, you know, like my music continued to get heavier with the heavier music I listened to, the style that I played, and then you know, that's the pre-era origins of Origin up until like I started playing in bands. That was like would be the music and what got me to where I started.
So you had this pretty great opportunity, like most people in your age range, that you kind of grew up seeing metal evolve pretty constantly over at least a couple decades, and now you're kind of like in this area where you've forged your own path in metal, and you've kind of created and brought up this new genre with like technical, you know, metal, death metal, whatever you want to call it. How weird is that, kind of like being involved in that aspect of the genre?
Well, in some aspects, I've always just called it death metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because there wasn't that terminology back then, and when Origin came out with it coming into existence, they didn't know how to really title it to market it to people. Like, well, that's not like the death metal I know, but but some people would say, but I came from them. I was always looking for the next extreme thing, and that's kind of like, I think that's what Origin became, because I was always trying to search for a new idea of how to make something similar but yet different in my own way. And I think that's part of the creative process of being an artist or a musician. That is appealing to me. It's harder now that I'm older, and there's so much more music and access to learning music. I was recording VHS tapes and recording videos and frame advancing and watching the guitar player, trying to figure it out by ear.
Wow.
And now you have somebody on YouTube just, giving you free lessons, which is incredibly awesome. And like, there's so many amazing, talented musicians at such a young level now.
Yeah, it's insane, right?
It's advanced leaps and bounds. I don't know if any of these guys can stand up playing. It seems like they're all stuck on the chair and have to look at their guitar. I just teased. Okay, well, anyway,
You're not wrong. I've seen videos. A lot of them are sitting down.
Never a guy in the garage. You have to sit down and stare at the guitar. I mean, what happens to the no look? You know what I mean? Anyway, it's just teasing. But yeah, there's an amazing amount of information out there, and the talent level is extremely high. And the gear has changed and everything. It's made it easier to achieve these sounds. It's still expensive, but it's probably at a more affordable price point. To the accessibility for anybody to get to. Now there's home recordings and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's pretty incredible. I kind of wandered off there.
No,
from the original question, I think. But
so with the recordings that you have coming up, basically the origins of Origin is what I've been seeing and told here. Where did you get the idea, I guess, to kind of go back and you re-recorded all this stuff, right?
Yeah. So basically, the idea was, okay. So the thing was that coming into existence was recorded in '98. I self-pressed it and sold it on tour, and it'd be funny because I would have I pressed quite a bit, and then I'd be on tour and I'd find another box. I'm like, oh, I found another 30 boxes. Because people were like, I think I bought mine in 2004. I was like, yeah, I might have found a box of 30 and just brought it on tour and people bought it. But wow. I'm pretty sure that was out of, I didn't print any more than the original couple thousand. And oddly, it's just gotten to notoriety, and the Origin fan base is pretty rabid. And I've seen people spending $120 to $180 on eBay. I'm like, man, that's a ripoff.
Wow, yeah.
So the thing is, I know there's collectors of metal and there's Origin fans and all that kind of stuff. So I came to the point of I didn't want to. First of all, I wanted to have that stuff out so I could it'd be part of out there, so you can get it on iTunes, so you can stream it, so you can listen to it. So there's, instead of a YouTube link, I just wanted I want a digital footprint of all my music.
Yeah.
And that was the idea of it, first of all. And secondly, I've always had these songs linger around that were never, it would kind of be dumbing it down to the current members of Origin at any era, but I wanted these songs to exist. It's like the opening chapter of a book that was never there. And Origin kind of came out with a big bang explosion and had success really fast, and kind of a crazy introduction to the band. But these songs existed beforehand, and it's just something that's been sitting around for years. And then one of the things was I want to say after Entity, I was trying to learn recording, and I had a friend, and we played music together, and we had a recording kind of aspect that we could do stuff, and I wanted to make these songs real. Now, did I ever think it would come in this fashion? No. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be of the era. I wanted it to be a little loose. I didn't want it to be perfect click track. I wanted it to be more like in the 90s. I am nowhere near the level of skill of like the guys in Origin or in the talent of the genre of death metal now, but I feel like I have a good sense of representation of when I was playing this music, and I used the influence of the guys I was playing music by.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there's kind of this thing. I was just building this for my own personal thing, and Agonia, we signed with Agonia in probably 2013, but 2014 is when the album came out. And they started inquiring about it coming into existence, and I was like, it'd be something that I'd be interested in putting out. And they just asked me if I had anything else. Is there anything else? Do you have any? I have a couple of live videotapes, and I have the pre-era Origin songs that I recorded all myself. I don't know if it, the Origin's the Origin, and it was just one of those things where, it's technically not Origin, but it is Origin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I formed the band, I'm primary songwriter and stuff like that. But so I just wanted my interpretation of the songs, how they were, back before Origin formed, and it's just a precursor and something bonus for the people that already own a coming into existence. You know what I mean? Give them something a little extra and a little more insight into the band and how much extreme music has changed. Little kids are playing with sugar at 5 now. You know what I mean? I was listening to "Shout It Out Loud" by Kiss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're playing Chaos Sphere or something. I couldn't even believe. I can't even wrap my head around that. So it's amazing how far it came, and that's kind of like the insight behind it. That there is some more. Agonia is going to do a whole thing with the origins of Origin. That's kind of. I'll just keep it simple right now. We're going to go through the history and the albums, and I won't explain more than just the Abiogenesis part, which is the beginning of like the pre-Origin era stuff, which and then there's a coming into existence, which is the original 1998, which has been remastered.
Nice.
And I feel like people will start to figure out, hey, it seems like there's more Origin stuff than there was, like the first 2 Origin albums were never pressed on vinyl. So I'll just drop it as that. I'm just doing little hints here, and that's all the farther I'll go.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing about this pre-era, and eventually we never really did a DVD, and this is a good way of exposing the band and the history of the band, giving a little bit more insight to the fan base for Origin.
Which I think is a good idea, man. That's one thing that I thought was really cool about this idea is collecting all this music and giving it a modern representation and letting the fans kind of see where it evolved and how it changed over the years, or even just even to get to hear it in general. I think is a cool idea, because I don't think a lot of bands would do that. I know there's a lot of bands that like sit on stuff that they had that's like pre whatever band they are now. But I mean, are they ever going to let anybody hear it? Probably not.
Well, it may be a risk thing, but I just wanted it done. And like I said, it was just an excellent opportunity. It just lined up, and Agonia was willing to package it in a certain format, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To tell the story. And the rest of the story will be out there as well. And then, it's just the beginning. And then, there's a lot of history of the band. We're 20 years old, but some of this material is almost 30 years old, you know what I mean? But, we're not, like the early 90s was when the pre-era Origin stuff was written. I will say that the music was basically the guitar, vocals, and bass, exactly the same format. The drums are based off the 3 drummers I jammed with back then: Drew Braid, Jamie Serrano, and George Flute, the original drummer organ, kind of blended into one. And probably not as good as any of the 3 of them, but I was just trying to do a representation of the time, and I tried to do the best of my ability. I'm sure true drummers will mock and laugh at my skills, but I wanted to be out there. And, you know, besides, I jam with some of the best musicians in death metal, I feel, with John Longstreth, Mike Flores, and Jason Kyrus is the hell of a vocalist too. So if they want to talk crap, I have plenty of discography to, you know, say, hey, you can. I jam with some of the best in the business, you know. So in my humble personal opinion. So anyway, this is not a representation of what New Origin is in the first place, you know. So.
Well, I think the fact that you just recorded everything yourself speaks to your level of talent already. So I feel like if somebody's going to nitpick over the way drums sound, that's kind of silly, because it takes a lot of work to record all that stuff.
Oh, man. I'm glad it's done. I don't want to do it again.
Was it?
I mean,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say,
no, the whole, how long?
Yeah.
The thing was is that at the time I was playing drums. I mean, I've always kind of been a closet drummer. I moved to California in 2001. I tried out for the band Vile. I didn't get the job. I've jammed with a couple guys that are good guitar players. I've worked at Guitar Center for like 16 years, and I've worked in the drum shops. I've always been around drums, and I've always had kind of a drum set, closet, you know. But it's like, so I've always studied drumming and all the techniques and everything. Now, I'm going to say from 2010 to 2012, I really barreled down because I was jamming with these guys like 4 times a week. And we were trying to get something to happen, but it just never did. But then it became, well, I haven't practiced all. I'm jamming. My skills are up to probably the highest level I've ever had than that. And I felt like that it was the best time for me to try to recreate this music drumming-wise. And it started out not as serious as it became, and this became its own thing. And then the great thing was that I'm a way better guitar player than drumming, so like I could figure out the sway. I mean, it's not perfect in the today's standards, but I can move and sway my guitar playing a little bit to kind of manipulate some of the looseness of the recordings, you know, to make it sound good, you know. So it's a little different than how they do things now, to a complete grid and everything's perfect. I mean, yes, there was editing just like any major studio album and all that stuff, but I'm glad it's done. I want to say that the actual drums were done in 2013, and like it kind of sat for a long time. The guitars and all that were done, and then like it just sat there for a long time. And then it wasn't until like Agonia kept saying, hey, we're really interested in this, you know, like, and trying to bring this out. And so then I had to go find lyric sheets that were on little, you know, memo pads and stapled together, and try to figure out these words from medical dictionaries and stupid stuff that, you know, we all did. That the carcass made it ruined our lives, and we had to learn all these big words. But you know, it ruined our lives in a good, fun way. But you know, I mean, it was like so I had to go back, and you know, there were some things that just, you know, like I had so the tracks were pretty close to being done, but it was like, oh well, okay, well this is serious now. Well, this truly would have a harmony here, and like I had to go back and listen to a tape over and over to figure out a guitar solo I wrote on one of the songs. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you've heard it, but you know, I kind of used the samples that we always talked about using from that era on one of the songs, and just the original ideas of the song.
So how long? So you said you started the drums in 2013. How long did it take to?
Yeah.
Did you record everything on your own, or were you actually like doing studio stuff?
Well, we had my buddy. We were at a studio in New York. You know, we were recording there. So basically, I went through and finished it all off. You know, I'd be like, you know, it became like it was like, okay, they're talking about it again. I'll go track some vocals, and then it was like, you know, and I wouldn't hear anything, and I didn't think anything of it. 9 months later, like, oh, you know, they're talking about it again. I'll record another song. You know what I mean? And so it just became over time. It was like, you know, it wasn't a fast process. Like I said, I didn't know. And then it became, oh, this is really going to happen. I really need to, okay, we need to. So like we cleaned it all up and did the, you know, the editing, like, you know, like they do, like they go and clear all the dead space out of the recording and then make sure the levels are right. And, you know, it's just making it professional. And between me and him, just sitting in there tinkering and, you know, eating a burrito and drinking a beer and BS and, you know, I mean, having a good time. And then like, it just kept getting more and more serious. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to send it to Rob Rebeck, who does all the origin stuff, you know what I mean? And he went over it, finished the final mix and master, and remastered it coming into existence. Agonia was like, send them some of the things, and they're like, wow, this is great. We love it. We want to, you know, it's an excellent addition to the origin history. It gives an idea of the pre-origin era, of the anniversary album for origin coming into existence with pre-origin era stuff. That's the Abiogenesis part of it. You know, I try to make it sound like a origin title, and just to give an idea of the origins of origin.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's why I really wanted to talk to you, because the whole concept of my podcast is, you know, about the history of the genre. So trying to, you know, really get the story about like where the band started, and, you know, hearing all these recordings are like a good audio narrative of that, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, those earlier bands we just couldn't put together. Like I was the youngest, you know, and then I became the oldest. You know what I mean? Like it was, you know, and the guy in the band, but it was like we just couldn't keep it together. Like, I mean, '93 death metal was kind of not the same. I mean, like a lot of people had changed, and a lot of people were doing different things for their life and not as serious about it. You know, and growing up and trying to figure out your own life, and things changed with people, and you know, it's like, but you know, I was pretty much, I still had this belief that I could create this music, and that's how origin came to be. I was trying to clean the slate of the past and write new music, and I found some of the guys I jammed with before were George Fluke and Mark Manning I jammed with back in the day. And I met Jeremy Turner, and he was very serious and professional. And I jammed with Clinton, and he actually played bass on Coming Into Existence, where he later played guitar on Echoes of Decimation, Clinton Applehands. You know, I felt like that was the best lineup I could find from the area that I grew up in. And I was like, if we get this recorded, maybe something special will happen. And some people bought into it and some people didn't, and the lineup didn't last very long, but I recorded it. It's forever a piece in origin history. I'm very proud of what it represented at the time. And it also led to many different albums and things that I got to experience in my life at touring, you know, so many places I never even dreamed of going or even knew about, and creating, you know, 7 full-length albums, and, you know, thankfully not that many band member changes, and luckily enough, I'm fortunate enough to still jam with, you know, John Longstreth, Mike Flores, and Jason Kaiser a day. And hopefully this is just a little snippet, puts it in half until the next new origin album comes out, you know, with the current lineup. So
yeah, dude, I feel like the guys that you've had in the band over the years, no matter what lineup, I mean, it's always been just some of the most solid guys in the genre. And I know I'm looking forward to whatever you do next. But this little piece of history right here is really cool that you got to kind of put that out into the world. And I hope people definitely gravitate towards it, man, because it's pretty. I've only heard the one track so far that they've released, but it's fucking awesome to hear it, I gotta say.
Well, I mean, there's some variance in it. You're going to hear it, but, and there's going to be people that are like, this is terrible. But, I mean, it doesn't matter what you put out nowadays. There's going to be some kid, keyboard warrior, what we call them, that hates it. You know what I mean? That can play Meshuggah at age 5. And, they don't understand that it always wasn't like that. I felt like, me not just making a drum machine album, it gave some realness to it and a life to it and some sloppiness to it that is more resemblance of like the earlier forms of death metal. And I don't know, like it's pretty risky for me to throw something out there that's all me. But like I said, it's something that I didn't ever believe it would come to this point, but it did. And like I said, if anymore you have to put your music out there, just have thick skin, because if you get too caught up in it, you wouldn't be writing music anyway. And besides, there wasn't the internet back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was pretty angry back then. I think it's pretty relevant in what I wrote. I mean, I only play angry music now. Yeah, it's a positive release of negative energy for me. So I'm fine with it. And if the Origin fans like it, awesome. And if they don't, there's so much. It's so easy just to push your button on the phone and go to the next thing that you love. It's like, why even spend the time complaining? It's like, it's not hard to go forward or back. I had to ride a bicycle 2.5 miles to buy a tape, and then throw my lawnmower money down and ride a bicycle back 2.5 miles to push play on a tape.
Yeah.
It's like a different world, because now this little device in my pocket, I can just play anything, and I can go on tangents about how terrible you are. It's like, oh my God, I can't even imagine growing up like in this form of world. I don't even know. I was terrified to hear Celtic Frost. You know what I mean? Like, which was terrifying. I mean, so I don't even know. So now it's never good enough. But oh well, it's out there, and I'm glad people appreciate it. And like I said, if they don't, it's so easy to go open up another page and listen to another band that you love. So, and if they don't love this era, that and they like newer Origin, then they can play new Origin or mid-era Origin or whatever era they want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I'm on the same page with you with that. Like, I've gotten to the point in my life where it's like, if I don't like it, it's just not for me. I'm not gonna sit here and waste my time worrying about it. I can find something else. But I've also spent a lot more time finding a lot more music I love by giving things a chance instead of just like skipping by it. And that's kind of my deal with music. But yeah, it's a weird time to be like ingesting music, because it's just so prevalent. You can get it at any point in time. It's just everywhere.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyways,
thanks, Sam. I really appreciate the interview.
Absolutely, dude.
I don't know if you have anything else. I don't know if you have anything else you want to cover, or.
No, you didn't have a lot of time, so if maybe in the future, if I can get your input on some other Origin records when I cover them, I would definitely like to reach out to you. If that's all right.
Yeah, we can go through the whole thing. I mean, I'm actually going to talk in the podcast now. But, do you want me to do a header or anything, or?
Let people know when the record comes out and where they can find it. If not, I can just edit it in myself. I'll always link to that stuff too, so people can like pre-order and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'll just say that now. Hey, this is Paul from Origin. Hey, this is Paul from Origin. Our anniversary album, Abiogenesis, coming into existence, featuring the origins of Origin and pre-era Origin material, will be out May 3rd on Agonia Records. Check it out.
Awesome. Perfect.
Be excellent to each other. And